No, I did not watch the Coronation, but all the clips are all over social media, and Pierce Morgan covered it, so I just thought I'd talk about some of the things that he pointed out today. So it looks like it just kind of exhibits how petty the royal family is. So Princess Anne had a hat that was blocking Harry. Imagine, look at that, intentionally, and not only, okay, I understand why they didn't seat him, like, look at him, right? So he's third row. All these random relatives are in front of him. Of course, William and his family, Kate, they're all front row. He's third row, and Princess Anne, the king's sister, is right in front of him. And they would have had rehearsals. They would have had a rehearsal, and she knew this is intentional. And it kind of shows you sort of the malicious subtlety of the British royal family. That they wanted to throw shade. They knew the papers would cover this the next day viciously, and they just wanted to throw shade in that way. So look, they had him sitting there, and it's just kind of, I think, like, what's his name? William is on this side over here. Yeah, you can see William here. Look at Harry. And that's why, I love that he said he respects himself. He said, look, I'm not staying. He was there for 24 hours and he left. And here's the thing, right? I understand where Charles is coming from. Where Charles is coming from is like, look, this is my son. And I love him and I want him at my coronation, but I'm a king, and my duty to the throne, my duty to the throne dictates that I have to give some sort of punishment to him. And this is his punishment. You're no longer in the royal circle anymore. You're no longer allowed in the royal sort of community anymore. That is his punishment. I understand the optics because if a king is not respected by his own son, why should his subjects respect him? And that's kind of the perspective that I think he's going with. So he had to punish him in some way publicly, and this was the punishment, that you're no longer in the royal fold, as if like anyone really cares. But I'm sure, 300 million people did tune in to watch, so there's still people that will tune into this type of thing. So this is the subtle shade that they're showing. Really, really petty to me, but I understand where he's coming from. As for Harry, it would have been very irresponsible for him not to come to his father's coronation, especially something that his father has waited his entire life. This was a huge day, but it was also very symbolic. These people are masters at public appearances and marketing. So, but it was also symbolic. He still positioned himself in a way that he showed self-respect and dignity. So he was this loving son that still showed up at his father's thing and let his father disgrace him by putting him third row. That's fine. But he didn't even sleep there that night. He left immediately. He didn't even show up at the concert. Oof. And in addition to that, he didn't bring his wife because they would have disrespected his wife. So why would he bring her? Didn't bring his wife and didn't bring his kids. Didn't bring his wife and didn't bring his kids to say, I'm going to my actual family now. Because at the end of the day, you don't decide the family you're born into, but you sort of create your own family. And this is the family he chooses and he's created. My only thing is that the sacrifice that it takes for you to do this, is it going to be worth it? You guys better not divorce. You got to make that marriage work. Anyway, so Pierce Morgan was talking about the actress in Bridgerton. I'm going to play this clip.
We've gone from the rich diversity of the Abbey to a terribly white balcony. I'm very struck by that.
The Netflix star who plays Lady Danbury in Bridgerton has now apologised for upsetting people after a comment caused a backlash on social media. But did she have a point? Or was her opinion actually the thing that was terrible? Well, let's discuss this now.
Basically, she said, they were at the balcony. It was a royal family. They were at the balcony, and she basically goes, terribly white balcony. And so I saw people going on an uproar on social media, And on one side, you know, the royal family is predominantly white, so yes, it makes sense that they're white, but we're neglecting the fact that they have black members of their family. They have people of color in their family. This woman here is going to tell you some of the people in the family that are black or people of color that they hid intentionally.
Imagine for a moment, we talked about the Tongan royal family. And I said, wow, they're terribly Polynesian or terribly black. What would you have said?
So I can't answer that question because I don't know the history of the Tongan royal family.
Well, they're Polynesian.
But I do know the history of this royal family to the extent that there are people of colour in this royal family. We haven't seen, for example, the descendants of Anaya, her name was, until she was baptised, Sarah Forbes Bonetta. We don't have the descendants of, for example, the princesses who came from India. Why not?
But they're not the kids of the senior working royals.
They
the
were
only
part
criteria for being on the
of
balcony
Queen Victoria's
is they're the senior members of the family,
They were
who, by the way,
part-
happen to be white. When was that a crime?
Piers,
that
you
a
can
family
shout.
is white?
You can shout because you know that what I'm about to say is going to upset you because it's right. Piers, Queen Victoria had a wonderful family portrait, and that family portrait included people of colour. Where are those descendants? Why aren't they on the balcony? Where is Meghan? Where are her
Where's
children?
Meghan?
Where is Dorian?
I'll tell you where Meghan was.
Where are they?
Meghan is at her $11 million mansion in California, which is gained from the proceeds of trashing the royal family for the last 3 years. That's where she is.
I accept that the adverb of terribly probably wasn't what I would choose.
You think?
Disappointingly,
All right,
I
listen.
would.
Well, that makes sense.
These
you know?
are the-
hell no. That makes sense. Like, at the end of the day, look, they have people of color in their family, and they have people on that. They had people on the balcony that were not like immediate family members. So that it's like whatever. Anyway, I'm not here trying to. I get it. You know, I didn't watch the Coronation. I don't support what the whites what they stand for, and I want to show you. You feel like the way that they've treated Prince Harry is messed up. Wait till you hear the vicious history of the British royal family and how they have treated their people. So when you look at this, you're gonna know that actually they're very kind to Prince Harry. Let's watch it.
Flashback. The year is 1066, so no cameras. We're doing portraits today. 38-year-old William landed on the shores of Britain. He landed here, at this place, called Pevensey, opposite France. His army, great statesman, champion 7,000 men.
No. Sorry about that.
Flashback. The year is 1066, so no cameras. We're doing portraits today. 38-year-old William landed on the shores of Britain. He landed here, at this place, called Pevensey, opposite France. His army had some 7,000 men. But what was he doing here? Trying to defeat Harold, the King of England. Spoiler alert, Harold lost. His army was defeated, and he was killed in the Battle of Hastings. There was a new king in town. The 38-year-old conqueror William was crowned in this building on Christmas Day in the year 1066. Looks familiar? That's Westminster Abbey, the same church where King Charles got his crown today. Charles and William are separated by 34 generations. William was the first Norman king. Charles is the latest. Between them is a story of power, violence, and ambition. A story of murdered relatives and looted colonies. You thought the Meghan Markle thing was a scandal. Wait till you hear this story.
I just want to say that the thing about white supremacy or the white power structure, that's my new way of saying white supremacy without being offensive. The thing about the white power structure, and like historically, is they've treated their own really terribly. And so if they treat their own like that, what are they going to treat non-white people. Like, when you actually just look at the history, British history, whoo, the way they used to treat poor people, oh my God, oh my goodness.
Back to the days with no internet. 34 years have passed since William conquered England. His third son is on the throne. He's also a William, William II. That's the English royal family for you, big on power, low on creative names. Either way, William II is hunting in southern England one day. Disaster struck. His own noble killed him with an arrow. What's more, nobody even bothered to recover his body. It was an arrow maker who eventually found the dead king. Sounds fishy? Many historians agree. They point fingers at William's younger brother Henry. He was a man in a hurry. He first secured the treasury in Winchester, then rushed to London and made himself king.
Sorry, that's another William and Henry, because Harry's name is Henry.
Rumor is he had his elder brother killed. And the UK royal history is filled with such betrayals and murders. But as they say, what goes around comes around. Just ask Henry's great-grandson, King John, who took the throne in 1199. But he had a rival, his brother's son, named Arthur. Guess what King John did to his 16-year-old nephew/rival? First, he ordered his eyes and genitals to be removed. It was so cruel, even the jailer refused. So the king took matters into his own hands. He personally murdered his nephew and threw his body into a river. It was a sign of things to come. Cut to the 15th century, one of the bloodiest chapters in English history was unfolding. It was called the War of Roses. Nothing rosy about it, though. It was 30 years of ruthless and barbaric civil war. There were two players, the House of Lancaster and the House of York. Their armies fought a famous battle in 1471. The Yorks won, but it was a bloodbath. Around 2,000 Lancastrian soldiers were slaughtered. That place is still called the Bloody Meadow. With the war done, the Yorks set about ruling. Their king was Edward IV, great general, bad sibling. He grew suspicious of his brother George, the Duke of Clarence. By now you know where this is going. Edward imprisoned his brother and had him killed. He was drowned in a pot of wine. Not my idea of a sweet death. But like I said, what goes around comes around. In 1483, Edward IV died. His successor, his 12-year-old son, also Edward. The young boy was heading to London when his uncle stopped him. He put Edward and his brother in the Tower of London. Nobody has seen them since. The uncle made...
So you guys have to understand that this thing is a generational curse. Like, this thing is like the nature or what they've been raised into, the toxicity that they've been raised into, right, is a generational curse of perpetual just sort of like betrayal, backstabbing, and vicious treachery, right? That's literally the roots of their family. So it's actually no surprise. This is obviously the evolved 2023 version, so there's no killing, especially because the public is watching you. But the toxicity is within the family, you know, and it's no surprise that Harry sold out his family for $100 million. That's exactly what his ancestors, they've done worse. So it's so funny to me how everyone's like ridiculing him when this is exactly what all of them have done. They've done worse things than that. You know, all he did was betray his brother for $100 million. These people were killing their brothers for the throne. And because obviously Harry can't get the throne, and they always say that like the extra sibling has no purpose. You're just there waiting and you have no mission in life, you have no purpose. And I guess he just wanted to create his purpose and or build his own life. And that's, you know, this is what California is, the freest place I've ever been to in the world. He went to go find his freedom by betraying his family, but that's traditional. It's traditional. And him being sort of excommunicated from, or, you know, pushed aside, you know, from the coronation. That seems like that has probably happened so many times. Because some of them weren't even allowed at the coronation. Some of them were killed before the coronation historically. So to me, I just see history repeating itself in the toxicity. And what I really see is Harry breaking the cycle. You know, Harry is saying, look, I'm not going to take the abuse and the doom and gloom of being within this family where I have no purpose. I'm going to find my own purpose. I'm going to betray you by doing it. And that is tradition. But anyway.
Made himself king, but decades later, 2 skeletons were found in the tower. Did they belong to Edward and his brother? Your guess is as good as mine. The murderous uncle did not stay king for long. Just 2 years later, he lost the throne. If you think things have been violent so far, think again. What you just saw was the trailer. The movie is just beginning. Our murderous uncle's defeat signaled the start of a new reign, the House of Tudor. They had 5 monarchs, but one stands out, Henry VIII. Being his spouse was like playing Russian roulette. Very risky stuff. Henry divorced 2 of his wives and executed 2 more. In fact, he had a thing for executions. In 36 years...
So, in school, we learned divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. And that's how, he went through his wives.
He executed around 57,000 people. That's around 4 people per day. Among them was Thomas Cromwell, great statesman, champion reformer, but a bad judge of character. Cromwell was Henry's chief minister. He did 2 very important jobs. One was to arrange marriages for the king. The second was to reform Christianity. Both things came back to haunt him. Henry being...
Well, actually, I like that he killed him. Oh my God, that's good, because that's the one that betrayed Anne Boleyn, that got her beheaded. Wow. He's the one that put Anne Boleyn in... Henry VIII basically created the Church of England because he wanted to divorce his wife because she couldn't bear him a son. And so he went for Anne Boleyn, right? And that, I think Anne Boleyn was that man that he killed's niece. But then he ended up killing Anne Boleyn when he wanted his new wife, and that her uncle threw her under the bus too. But good that he beheaded him. So Henry VIII was vicious. It's so crazy how in school, because I went to school in England, we were made to celebrate this man as the beginning of the... Can you imagine this is the beginning of the Church of England? This vicious man that killed 57,000 people. Jesus.
Henry had a problematic marriage with Cromwell's chosen bride. The result, Cromwell lost his head.
Jesus.
Henry's daughter too had a vengeful streak. Elizabeth I. Her rivalry with Mary, the Queen of Scots, is legendary. Fun fact, Mary was also Elizabeth's cousin. Did not stop her from doing what she did though. Elizabeth imprisoned Mary for 18.5 years. Then in 1587, she was executed. It took 3 swings of the axe to behead her.
First of all, that's freaking vicious. But I wonder if William and King Charles fantasize about, the good old days where they could just hack, the traitor, Harry's head off. I wonder if that's it's 100% crossed their mind. They've probably even said it out loud. Like, man, just, back in the day, we could just, chop it off. Oh, well.
And you thought Game of Thrones was bad. Mary's story does not end here. Elizabeth died without children. Guess who succeeded her? The son of Mary, the same queen she executed. He took the throne in 1603. This was around the time when Britain started thinking about colonies. Soon the bloodlust would be exported worldwide. But more on that later. Around the mid-17th century, Charles I became king.
Almighty God, to celebrate
Is that Victoria's
the
dad?
solemnity of our
I'm not
royal
sure.
coronation at Westminster.
He was a delusional ruler. He thought he was appointed by God. When the parliament disagreed, he went to war. Charles was defeated in 1645 and executed 3 years later. That's right, a king was executed. And with that, Britain became a republic. No king, no royal family.
Okay.
But as they say, a dog's tail can never be straightened. In 1660, the royals returned. Charles II became king. After centuries of killing sons, brothers and nephews, they were ready for the next stage, colonialism. Close your eyes and pick any country on the globe. Chances are Britain invaded it. Around 90% of all countries were invaded by the British. They became the superpower of the 18th century. Their economic model? Slavery. To be clear, Britain did not start the slave trade. That would be Portugal and Spain, but Britain perfected it. They transported around 3.4 million Africans to their colonies. 2.7 million reached alive, the rest perished. This was all done with royal approval. Remember Charles II?
I hope you guys watched my documentary about how the Portuguese started it, and also how they used to throw the slaves off ship. And then they would also get compensation for the insurance, with their insurance policies for, if a slave got sick, they would throw them off ship because they were so cheap and easy to get.
In his rule, the Company of Royal Adventurers into Africa was set up. Nothing adventurous about it. This company shipped more slaves than any other. Its shareholders included royal family members. If Charles II institutionalized slavery, Charles III is carrying its burden. That's the current king. His direct ancestors bought slaves in Virginia. We are yet to hear an apology, though. Looking back, what do we make of this empire, of this throne? It was built on the blood of murdered relatives, on the sweat and blood of slaves and colonial subjects. By some accounts, 100 million Indians died prematurely because of British policy. 100 million Indians in just 40 years. They also took resources worth $45 trillion, which is 15 times Britain's current GDP. The entire world.
Sorry, I want to play that again so we just understand what she said.
Bought slaves in Virginia. We are yet to hear an apology, though. Looking back, what do we make of this empire, of this throne? It was built on the blood of murdered relatives, on the sweat and blood of slaves and colonial subjects. By some accounts, 100 million Indians died prematurely because of British policy. 100 million Indians in just 40 years. They also took resources worth $45 trillion, which is 15 times Britain's current GDP. The entire world has had to pay for the royal family's mistakes. The First World War was such a case. Don't believe me? Take a look at these men. They look the same, don't they? Well, because they're all cousins. One is George V, King of England. The other is Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. The third is Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany. All three were rulers during the First World War, and all three were also cousins. Their rivalry ended with the death of 20 million people. This flashback is a reminder of the real history of the British throne, the blood they spilled, the innocents they executed, and the lands they plundered. The throne soiled by cruelty and ruthlessness.
Damn. Vicious, vicious, vicious. So, I mean, like I said, if they're going to treat their own like this is just history repeating itself. The way they're treating Harry, the way that they're treating, Meghan, the racism, all of that stuff, the white supremacy. And when it comes down to it, like, if Britain's GDP is $3 trillion a year, there's no way that they can pay back. Asking for reparations is just gonna, they're not going to be able to do it. And so they're not going to be able to do it in those ways. I think that, because Britain's already suffering as it is, I still think we do deserve reparations, but not in the way that a lot of people think. People think we want cash payments. I don't think that's the answer. I think it's sort of this aligning of the West to stop exploiting developing countries. That's really what the thing is. You've seen what I talked, my few videos or the last few videos I've made, where I break down, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and how in that book he explains how the World Bank, the IMF, the U.S. government basically funds them to basically force these African nations or force countries, third developing countries, to sign up for these loans, and these loans have these stipulations in them that ensure those countries are underdeveloped. Like, for example, you can't build factories, you can't do all these things, you can't do these things that make you develop. That's part of the loan conditions, and if they don't agree to even accept these loans, according to the book, they're killed off. So I think that's the first point that we should say. And at the end of the day, people say, well, that's America, it's different from the UK. No. They still are militarily aligned, and they work together in cahoots to sustain and prevail white supremacy. This is why America is very much so celebrating this coronation. Not as much, actually. You didn't hear anything about it here, but America still nods, or they nod at it, because the UK is the pinnacle of white supremacy. Well, the royal family. It's all declining now. It's very clear that it's declining. But I just have to say, my point is that these are the things that we need to be asking for or enforcing. This sort of stopping them where it hurts. They're not going to be able to, give money. They're not going to be able to do that. But they can give support and resources, and they can stop exploiting. The first thing is stop exploiting. That's the first thing. Stop exploiting, mind your business. I'm reading this book right now, Kicking the Ladder. It also breaks down some of that stuff about the systems of development and the way these countries enforce it. Some of these are economic policies that they enforce and they bully these other countries into applying. And these economic policies are designed to keep them disenfranchised. So this is what we should be asking for, not necessarily reparations or not necessarily money, because, or, give us back our artwork, our jewels, our, natural resources in those ways. But in addition to that, stop exploiting us. And then in terms of money, I don't know what the solution is. Probably have to sit with an economist. But obviously Britain has to do to be able to still maintain itself. I don't know if you saw during the coronation, again, I didn't watch the coronation. I did watch some people comments, random social media clips. Somebody commented on, I think it was Murad Murali, commented on how like they're, the potholes are filled with sand. Britain is a third world country, guys. It's going down. It's going under. And they were going to have load shedding this winter, but South Africa bailed them out. Their colonial clutches bailed them out. But Britain is not in good shape economically. How do you have sand-filled potholes? That is so ghetto. And we can see that, the imagery of that against like this prestigious royal family that's spending £100 million. Couldn't you guys fix the freaking road? Just at least like the world is watching. You have sand-filled potholes. It's a mess. I was in England last summer, and I remember just going to like Hyde Park or Regent's Park, and like nobody. Oh my God! It was just like nobody watered the grass. All those sort of parks and recreation or all those things like public services, they're not funded anymore. It's not funded anymore. The stuff that you see when you walk down the street in America, the wealth, the green grass, the affluence, just like when I say affluence, I just mean the refinement when you walk around in the US. Obviously not everywhere, some places are ghetto, but these places in the UK, they're not ghetto. That's where the king is driving his carriage to go to his coronation. Hyde Park is like why? Anyway, Hyde Park is like a big park. It's like the most famous park. I'm trying to think of the US equivalent. Central Park, there we go. It's like Central Park in New York City. Like, imagine the grass in Central Park not being green. Like, does that make sense? There's too much money in America for that to happen, but apparently in the UK, things are tight. Things are tough. So my point is that the UK does not have the money to do what we expect, or what people would want economically, but there are systems that we can use to ensure we get our reparations. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think about the vicious history of the royal family? What did you think about Harry being snobbed and Princess Anne? Is that her name? Her name is Princess Anne, right? Maybe I got her name wrong. I don't remember. Yeah, being shady. That was obviously strategic and planned. And also their outfit, that stuff that they were wearing was so like, what is that? Like what? I know Harry wasn't allowed to wear that but they couldn't take his medals away from him. But he was obviously not in the inside circle because he wasn't even given the costume that everyone else was getting. And I know the British public and the British media is going to make a big deal out of it, but I don't think he cares. That's why he respected himself and he went back within 24 hours. He didn't stay for the full coronation. He went to the church service, the main thing, and then he went back to his family, to his son's 4th birthday, Archie's 4th birthday, with his wife and his kids to celebrate. We know that was strategic, and I respect him for respecting himself and still being a good son, showing up at the most important day of his father's life. but having enough self-respect not to stay long enough to chitty chatter with them and have them disrespect him further. So I respect that for him, and I ain't got no complaints. And you know, as far as like the British public, they're gonna hate on him no matter what. So who cares? At least at the end of the day, they're not killing him, right? Because that's what they do historically. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. You're watching The Kenamo Show, and I'm your host, Kenamo, and I'll see you next time. A peace.